Today, we saw the S&P 500 rallying up, getting into yesterday's nasty gap. However, will Powell come out tomorrow and crash stocks? We look at the fear and greed index. Right now, we're sitting at 44, and you can see the previous close was at 39. Are we about to go over into neutral or maybe even greed? Will Powell pour more fuel on the fire tomorrow during his press conference? Now, when we come over and look at how the indices fared across the board, the Dow was up 136 points. The Nasdaq was up 391 points. S&P 500 up 55 points, and the Russell 2000 up 0.25. We look at advancing issues versus declining. We had 52.1% of issues advancing on the day, and this is something that we talked about today during the live stream. When we look at the S&P 500, and we're going to scroll this out real quick and put this on a 30-minute chart, we can see the S&P, the SPY, was up 0.86%. However, if you look at the RSP, the equal weight S&P, notice how drastically different this chart looks. The RSP was actually down 0.49%. And what is that basically telling us? Well, the big heavy hitters out there today were basically running amok. We had Nvidia on the move up again, up 8.82%. We saw Meta today making new all-time highs. Meta up 2.19%. And then Apple today also ripping up once again, up 3.65%. So the Mag 7 stocks were really helping to lift the indices out here today. However, is that going to be the case for tomorrow? Because tomorrow is going to be a big day out here for us. Tomorrow we have crude oil inventory numbers coming out at 10:30. Then at 2 p.m., we have the Fed funds rate, the FOMC statement. Then at 2:30, Papa Powell is going to be having the press conference, and we're going to see, will he rally stocks out here tomorrow, or is Powell going to go ahead and send stocks substantially lower? Now, if you guys want to join me on tomorrow's live stream, make sure you're subscribed and you have the bell notifications turned on for all. Now, tomorrow is going to be quite funny when we go ahead and listen to Powell's press conference, because right here, Powell's certain to be asked about Trump's demand for rates to fall. We can see right here, it wasn't too long ago, just a few days back, Trump says he'll demand that interest rates drop immediately. And let me know, do you guys think Jay Powell is going to cave to this demand, or is the Fed truly independent like Jay Powell tries to make us believe? We can also see right here that despite Trump's demand that the Fed cut rates, Wall Street increasingly sees the exact opposite happening. Now, if we come over real quick and we look at the Fed watch tool, keep in mind, we're 21 hours away from the time of recording this video until the next FOMC meeting. And if we scroll over and start looking at the probabilities of a rate hike or rate cut, we can see the market is not pricing in another rate cut all the way going until June of this year. So essentially the next 3 FOMC meetings, counting the one tomorrow, they're expected Jay Powell to essentially leave rates unchanged. Now, something that's a little bit troubling out here, when we come over and we look at the SPY real quick, notice yesterday we basically gapped away from all-time highs. And we look at this article right here. CEO Stephen Cohen says, I would expect markets to top over the next couple of months if they haven't already. Now, let me know also, do you guys think markets are in a topping phase, or is there no pullbacks allowed? Was yesterday just an anomaly and the only pullback we're going to see out here this year? We come over today and we start looking at the dollar index. What do we see? Dollar index back on the move up today, but we did close with a little bit of a wick on the candle. Now, if you like to trade the precious metal gold out here, yesterday gold got slammed down, but today was able to come roaring back. But today we have an inside day. The high is lower than the prior candle's high. The low is higher than the prior candle's low, which means that tomorrow is likely going to be a breakout or breakdown from this pattern. Keep in mind, with gold, we still have the ABC pattern up here at about 2,815. Then we dive over and take a look at crude oil real quick. We see crude oil having a little bit of an inside day today as well, kind of getting stuck right near this consolidation area. If crude oil continues to fall, watch for the next target at about 70.35. If crude oil starts to bounce, then I want to go ahead and pull the Fibonacci retracements from swing high down to the swing low and start looking somewhere between the 38% and the 61.8 Fibonacci levels. Now today we saw bond yields starting to rise once again. However, the candle did not close at the session highs, actually closed in the lower third of the range, and we have a selling tail on top of this candle. However, like we talked about already with the inside candle with gold, notice the high is lower than the prior candle's high and the low is higher than the prior candle's low, which means that tomorrow could be a breakout or breakdown from this pattern. That would be very likely. Now, let's not also forget, now, if you like a way to support the channel at no additional cost to yourself, Check out the 3 prop firms that I trade with: Apex Trader Funding, My Funded Futures, and Take Profit Trader. Right now, you can get the best deal out there using the promo codes and the links down below. Now, let's not also forget, right now, we're in the midst of earnings season. After the bell, we had Starbucks, we have Logitech, but tomorrow before the bell, ASML, Progressive, and then after the bell, we have Tesla, Meta, Microsoft, IBM, and Lam Research, just to name a few. And think about this: when Jay Powell gets the market moving during his press conference, if it continues to push in one direction going to the close, the earnings are either going to be a catalyst to continue to accelerate the move in that direction or cause the market to potentially do a U-turn after hours. Then let's not forget, on Thursday, we have a lot of big earnings out as well. UPS, MasterCard, Dow, and then after the bell, Apple, Intel, Visa. So again, we have a lot of volatility that could be slated to happen tomorrow and the following day. Now, as we come over real quick, we take a look at the diamonds real quick. The Dow Jones almost making another new all-time high, not very far away. We look at the Russell 2000 real quick. Russell 2000 staying below this anchored VWAP all the way up here from the recent 52-week high. Now, keep in mind, with the Russell, we still have a quite large gap down below us. Jumping back over and taking a look at the S&P 500, we already talked about we are well within that gap. And we look at the 4-hour chart real quick. Notice we had that inverted hammer down here near the low. We never made it all the way down, testing that declining trend line. And now the question is, do we form a lower high, or are we going to run all the way up and fill the gap? Something we talked about in yesterday's video was the fact that we could look at measuring from the candle close all the way to yesterday's high. Now, if we look at the MACD indicator, we see the lines starting to pinch together just a bit. Then as we dive down, start looking at the 30-minute chart real quick, something that we talked about in yesterday's video. If we want to look for additional targets in the gap, we could measure from the close of the prior candle all the way down to the high of yesterday. And some of the levels that we talked about were the Fibonacci ratios, and the highest one was right here around the 61.8. The market made it there and made it slightly above that level. Now, if I look at today's volume profile shape with the SPY, I'm going to classify this as a P as in Paul. That's not necessarily bullish or bearish, but what it does indicate is we start breaking above value area high, then we start coming back down. I want to target the point of control, but then I want you guys to focus on these minus development areas within the profiles, as they can provide additional targets moving forward. 30-minute chart on the MACD still looks extremely strong at this moment. Then when we come over, we start looking at the futures markets. Look out here on the 4-hour chart. We were able to come all the way back above the 61.8 and essentially finally testing out this structure breakdown point, which we've been talking about during the daily live streams. So now this last 4-hour candle is basically closing as a candle of indecision. So do we start to pull back a little bit? And if so, is this going to be a larger ABC pattern on the way down? Now, if we just go ahead and we map this out just in case, if this ends up being a turning point, which is a little bit too early at this moment to say so, that would give us an ABC pattern completion all the way down here at 5,891. Now, as we jump over and start looking at the daily profiles real quick, notice we're closing near the session highs, and the point of control is going to come in at 6,099. Value area high will be 6,104. Value area low will come in at 6,062. Now, as we look at this, one of the areas to the downside I would want to focus on tonight, assuming we are below the point of control, is going to be within this minus development area over here, anywhere from 6,084 to about 6,079. Now, this morning, we had some very interesting trades play out. You can see that when this morning during the live stream, when we were looking at the overnight volume profile levels, we could clearly see the S&P had already been above value area high from the overnight. And as we started to come back down, we could see that it was likely we were going to get a rotation all the way down. And guess where one of the targets were we were shooting for? All the way down here towards the point of control at 6,026. If you guys were on the live stream this morning, you've seen the trade play out, and then you've seen the trade right after that, trying to target that structure breakdown point, which ended up being a winner as well. Now, when we come over and look at the QQQs real quick, notice Qs got into the gap. However, when we look at that Fibonacci retracement level, we only made it slightly above the 38%. We did not even make it back in the 50% of that gap from yesterday being filled. Now, if you also notice, we're right near a high volume node on the composite profile, which is an area where we can see a lot of back and forth action. And with the Fed coming out tomorrow, that would not surprise me a bit. We come over and start looking right here. Do we start to turn around this area? This last candle on the 4-hour chart is a candle of indecision. We have a wick on the top, wick on the bottom, and and basically a small candle body. Now, if we do start to turn and roll back down from here, that would set up a much larger ABC pattern on the way down. Now, keep in mind, regardless of whatever chart pattern we see setting up right now, when the Fed comes out, J. Powell can absolutely destroy any chart pattern that we're looking at right here, right now. We look over here on the 30-minute chart. Notice we have that same P as in Paul shaped profile. And one of the areas I want to focus on is this whole minus development area from about 520.35 down to about 519.50. That is a logical area where the market is likely going to at least dip down towards at some point in the very near future. Now, when we come over and look at the futures markets real quick and we look at the 4-hour chart for the Nasdaq, notice we came right up to the 61.8. Then we have a little bit of a wick at that area. Do we finally start to pull back from that area? Now, if we want to know how far the pullback could occur, grab your Fibonacci retracement tool, measure from the swing low up here to the swing high, and you'll notice that the 38% retracement will be down here about 21,295. That is substantially lower than the current price. And don't be surprised if we come all the way down towards the 50% level. And keep in mind, J. Powell is likely going to produce a lot of volatility out here for us tomorrow. Then as we come over and start looking at the daily profiles, here's an area that I was watching and look what the market did. We talked about this on the live stream. Boom, came back and tested it. Boom, tested it again. And that is an area we were talking about on the live stream, watching the market come down to there and then potentially look to play it on the way back up. Now, if we look at value area high, that will come in at 21,625.5. Point of control being 21,553.5, with value area low being down here about 21,341. Now, if you guys like to learn why I think Take Profit Trader could be one of the most underrated prop firms out there, make sure to watch this video right here.